like a comprehensive support guide, just because it's always been kind of my dream to make something that's extensive and comprehensive at the same time. So I want to start a bit by the basics. This guide is meant to be as practical as possible. So the first stage of, I guess, that everyone encounters in Dota generally is the picking phase, and most people don't really realize what they want to pick and the basics of drafting. It doesn't matter whether you're playing in like a 5-stack or just solo. The picking phase actually is important, maybe not as important as the other phases of the game, specifically at like the lower skill levels, but it's still somewhat important. So, and like, I'm just going to tell you from my own experience of how I'm handling the support role. And my support hero pool is actually quite big, but I don't pick every hero in the games. I just tend to pick the ones that I'm playing recently, like maybe 10 to 15 heroes that I'm spamming currently, or ones maybe that I just want to, and I just like try to draft among those heroes. So, and the other thing is, like, the most important thing when you're drafting is to know basics of, let's say, categorizing the heroes depending upon, for example, defensive supports or supports that are good at roaming, ganking, or just babysitting the lane or team fighting. So like, generally I like to think of my supports in those 4 categories. Roaming, rotating, ganking, babysitting in the lane so that they're for sure able to secure the lane, team fighting in like early mid game, and the last one is defensive support, like supports that are purely there for saving the course in sticky situations. So those are the 4 categories. I just try to categorize my picks with, and then according to the draft, our draft or the enemy draft, I decide. Previously, like, I didn't used to do this, like before, when the picking was like in unranked, for example, or like in all pick. The all pick unranked, the picking stage didn't have timers. Now with timers, it's like really easy for supports to kind of get more information on how they want to draft. So, like for example, if I just list 10 heroes that I tend to play, I tend to enjoy, or rather play more roamers. So that's kind of where my hero pool is slightly shifted towards. So, just some of the only 2 defensive supports that I keep in my pool that I currently have are Dazzle, and the other one was Venge. The reason why I classify Venge as a pseudo, like, basically, you can't really have, there are very few heroes that primarily specialize in a single aspect. So, most of them are midway. So, for me, Venge is like, she can roam to some extent, she can take part in team fights because of her aura and wave, and she's also defensive because of her swap, which can also be used aggressively, I mean. But she's a very well balanced support. But out of the supports that I currently have, I classify Venge as a more defensive support. I used to play Oracle, and I sometimes play Io as well. But I don't play those heroes in this meta. I don't play Omni either. I can pick him, but I don't really, like, it's not like if I'm playing Captain's Mode or the 5-stack, someone's drafting, and sure, they can give me Omni. But when I'm picking myself, I like to stay in my own hero pool, and I prefer picking Dazzle and Wedge. I mean, you can branch and go extensive, but for the sake of keeping it comprehensive, I'm just going to limit it to like 10 heroes. So 2 defensive heroes, for example, Wedge and Dazzle, because they have some defensive skills. Then roamers. So there are 2 primarily like roamers that I'm going for are Kanka. He's basically like roamer and somewhat team fighting, and Earthshaker, because again, pretty much same level, roaming and Earthshaking. I mean, team fighting, basically Earthshaking. And Then I have some balanced roamers. For example, I play Rubik a lot, and the reason why I love Rubik so much is because he is pretty decent at roaming, because he's a very high damage Duke, and he's got a stun or lift, which is pretty good for setting up, doing a lot of things. It repositions the enemy as well as stuns them, so it's pretty good for roaming. But his range isn't as good as, for example, Kunkka. I even play Earthspirit sometimes. So yeah, these two are one of the best roamers I feel currently, Kunkka and Earthspirit, because they have long range catches, so they can catch enemies from like a pretty good range. And the other thing, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then some disablers, like hard disablers. I like Shaman and Lion, simply like because they have very strong, like Lion is my go-to pick for disables because he does not have a channel spell like Shaman. I prefer Shaman as well because he's more flexible in the terms that he can farm faster than Lion, and he can push, so he can transition better and scale slightly better in my opinion than Lion, but it depends whether you want that damage or this. Then for example, I also play Spirit Breaker, so that's 6, and it's around 8 heroes at the moment. Again, Spirit Breaker is a good roamer, but also a pretty good tank, a decent tank. So mostly roamers. Then for team fighters, Disruptor, he has amazing control, and he can even roam or babysit. Like, he's weak at those elements, but his team fighting is pretty solid. And the last one was Witch Doctor. So he is amazing in lane. He can team fight, like he can get solo kills, he can get double kills easily. Like, he is really good. What he lacks obviously is just that no reliable stuns, so that kind of reduces his roaming potential, and I guess he's a bit squishy, doesn't have any evasive capabilities. Like, I mean, Kunkka can use X mark somewhat, fissure block, Earthspirit has roll, etc. Spirit Breaker can charge away, so he's kind of weak if he gets caught. But yeah, so let's just say those are my 10 heroes. So if, for example, the ME team has like a Slok, an Ember Spirit, and I don't know, Storm Spirit. So like, these heroes are more or less very spell intensive in terms of that they may not necessarily be magic users, they may be right clickers. Like, more or less all of them are kind of right clickers. Storm is also a pseudo right clicker. And again, Ember as well tends to right click at times. Like, nowadays it's more magic based, but the element that needs to, that for you to kill them, you need one thing, is to not allow them to escape, and they use your spells to escape. So that's why in this scenario my key pick would be Disruptor, because he's able to shut them all down within AoE silence, as well as like glimpses. It's not amazing versus, say, Storm and Embers. Storm has a lot of mana, he can get away. But yeah, the other thing is that his lockdown, if you just glimpse and ult on the spot of the glimpse, there's no way like even an Ember can, maybe an Ember, but yeah. The other things you could do is go for something like a Shaman and try to force them into a disadvantage, like just push towers, or go for Lion with a blink. Lion can pretty much control any of them. Similarly, Earthspirit, he's got stuns, he's got silences, and all of them are AoE. Other drafts, for example, if the enemy team has like a lot of melee heroes, you can try to go for Earthshaker, but I feel like that's not the most reliable thing, just doing Shaker because they have melee heroes. I don't know. But he's great at counter ganking, counter initiations. So if you have, for example, they have some great initiators, and you need to, in that scenario, you can even work as a sort of a weird ass defensive support, as in that when an enemy team initiates, you can just blink and echo and save your team and start a counter gang. That's just the basics of drafting, I guess. If you should, what I ideally do is, for example, if my carry, so my thought process when I'm picking is, if my carries are weak in lane, I tend to have some element of lane support. So I'm not going to pick a Kanka if for example my other for example, we have 3 cores and a Pudge. I'm not going to pick Kanka if my carry is something like an Andy mage, because he's going to have a very hard time in lane, depending upon who the offlaner is. And with most offlaners, he's going to have a hard time. So I would not want to pick Kanka. If, for example, it's something like a PL or maybe Juggernaut or Swen, then I could opt to stay in lane for a couple levels until they become self-sufficient, right? Yeah. So that's the whole point of it. That's my drafting thought process for babysitters. For disablers, it's very simple. I would pick a lion or a shaker if I felt like my team doesn't have enough stuns. If my team has a lot of roamers or team fighters, then I could just opt to go for a dazzle or a defensive support. So just pick whatever your team is lacking. Other things that I find is that, for example, if the enemy team is very weak early game, or they have like bad lanes, or if my team has very aggressive early cores, for example an offlaner that can rotate or a mid that's very aggressive and wants to gank, then we can go for roamers. So that's pretty much it. I prefer to have at least one flexible like roaming support at least, if possible. Just go and do something for the rest of it.